Welcome to this fourth video in a series for district and school leaders who create, review, and approve school improvement plans in the Future Ready Comprehensive Planning Portal. This video focuses on preparing for and completing the expenditures tables in the portal. And this instructional video was produced by the Statewide Team for School Improvement at Lancaster, Lebanon, IU13, a leading education service agency which works in concert with the Pennsylvania Department of Education. Reproduction of this video is not permitted without written consent by IU13. This video will provide information on preparing for and completing the expenditure tables in the Future Ready Comprehensive Planning Portal. Throughout, the relationship of these tables to e-grants will be emphasized, and at the end of the video, a timeline will be reviewed. This video is focused on the GO Create Action Plans portion of the FRCPP. The GO Create Action Plans portion of the plan includes the expenditure tables. CSI schools must include a description of how CSI and Title I-A funds will be used to support the school implementation of the improvement plan. This video will not go into detail regarding allowable uses of CSI set-aside funds or Title I funds. For specific questions about technical aspects of federal funding, and for specific questions about compliance or regulations, please connect with your Regional Federal Programs Coordinator at the Pennsylvania Department of Education. For general guidelines to determine allowability, the following three tests must be taken into consideration. Is the expenditure necessary? Necessary costs are those that are required in order to carry out the program and activities contained in an approved grant application. Is the cost reasonable? A cost is reasonable if, in its nature and amount, it does not exceed that which would be incurred by a prudent person under the circumstances prevailing at the time the decision was made to incur the cost. Is the expenditure allocable? A cost is allocable to a particular federal award or other cost objective if the goods or services involved are chargeable or assignable to that federal award or cost objective in accordance with relative benefits received. For specific information about allowability, please use the QR code to go to the PDE website or communicate with your Federal Programs Coordinator at PDE. There are steps that school leaders can take to prepare for completing the expenditure tables. Overall, there are two areas to consider before entering expenditures. First is clarifying alignment across all elements of your plan, and second is to collaborate with the individual in your organization who oversees federal programming. There must be clear alignment between the Ready, Set, and Go sections of the school improvement plan. To clarify the alignment, first review the vision for learning. That is your overall compass of this work. Next, review your needs assessment. Is there a clear connection between the needs you identified in student data and the priorities you articulated? Then, is there a clear alignment between your priority and the strategy you selected? In other words, will the selected strategy address the identified needs? Once you're confident in the alignment, you can begin to plan to use funds to support the implementation of the selected strategy. This review ensures that you are aligning funding decisions to the strengths and needs of the school community. A logic model is a tool that can facilitate this alignment review. Let's look at this logic model from right to left, and then I'll share an example. Your plan will have a set of desired outcomes. They will most likely be written as goals or benchmarks, but they could also be written as milestones included in the action steps. As you're implementing your plan, you'll collect outputs or tangible items that provide you with the evidence that your plan or action steps are being implemented. Plans include actions or activities that teachers, leaders, or students are doing. Resources may be needed in order to carry out the actions or activities. This may include human capital, materials, or services. Without them, the plan can't be implemented. Reflecting on your plan through a logic model will help to clarify the need for resources. Here's an example. This school has 3 outcomes identified. They have goals set to increase student growth and achievement. They have a midterm outcome about the rate of implementation of specific instructional practices. And there's a short-term outcome, a milestone they wrote into their action steps, that teachers will increase their knowledge about a specific instructional strategy. The plan indicates that teachers will participate in a training on the identified instructional strategy, and a tangible output is to collect the attendance records from that training. In order for all of this to happen, the school team has identified trainers to provide the professional learning, and they need to be paid. This example makes the alignment of goals, strategies, and resources very clear. This model could be used to prepare for collaboration with your federal programs leader. Collaborating with your federal programs leaders allows you to understand what funds you have and helps them to see their part in supporting outcomes for the school community when considering the funding source. In addition to reflecting on alignment between the parts of your plan, these questions may help you to prepare for your conversations with your federal programs leader. What resources are needed? How will this resource address the priority or support implementation of your strategy? What funding source is appropriate? And what has been funded in the past but may not need to be included for this plan? Let's now shift into entering your expenditures into the tables in the Future Ready Comprehensive Planning Portal. These tables are located in the Go Develop Your Plan section. The school improvement or school-wide plan is considered the spending plan of the school. CSI schools must include a description of how CSI and Title I-A funds will be used to support the school. There are 2 separate tables. The table on the top is for planning the use of school improvement set-aside funds, and the table on the bottom is for planning the use of Title I-A funds. There is a checkbox on each table to indicate if you do not receive funds from either of these sources. Everything entered into these tables must match what is being entered into eGrants. Remember, CSI set-aside funds must be approved by PDE in the Future Ready Comprehensive Planning Portal, and Title I-A school improvement applications must be reviewed and approved by PDE before any funds will be available. CSI schools must complete the school improvement set-aside grant table. If you are not a CSI school and you do not receive these funds, check this box at the top to move on to the Title I funds table. Let's take a closer look at what must be entered. In the expenditure description box, you must provide a detailed description of the expenditure. This is where your understanding of allowable expenditures is necessary, including general language such as supplies, PD, activities, or books is not detailed enough. Each expenditure must be clearly defined. Otherwise, your plan will be returned to you from PDE. After entering the expenditure description, you'll use the drop-down to select all the action plans that the expenditure is a material, resource, or support for. Next, since this is the first level of approval and this table must match what is entered in eGrants, you must select the eGrant budget category that the expenditure will be placed in. If the salary of a position is being included in this table, the amounts for the salary and benefits must be separated. Next, select the ESSA tier of evidence that best matches the expenditure. CSI set-aside funds may only support the resources that support the implementation of a strategy that meets ESSA 1, 2, or 3 evidence requirements. Let's take a slight detour to review those. In Pennsylvania, there are 4 ESSA tiers of evidence. Schools designated as CSI must select strategies that meet the criteria for 1, 2, or 3. The tiers are determined by a review of these research components. You can learn more about ESSA tiers of evidence at evidenceforpa.org/learn. Returning to the school improvement funds table. Enter the exact dollar amount of each expenditure that is funded with CSI funds. Amounts should be in whole dollars without commas or the dollar symbol. This must match what is being entered into e-grants. If you need to include additional expenditures, click the Add Expenditures button. The total expenditures box will populate with the sum of the amounts that were entered in each row. If this total amount is different than the allocated amount, more or less, your plan will be returned. It must match the amount that has been allocated to the school. Once your plan is approved, export the School Improvement Set-Aside Grant Expenditure Table and ensure that the person in your organization who is responsible for completing the e-grant application has access to this spreadsheet. This person will differ per LEA. Let's shift now to entering your information into the Title 1A expenditure table. All schools that utilize Title 1A funds to support school-wide programming must complete the school-wide Title 1A funding allocation table. The school improvement or school-wide plan is considered the spending plan of the school. You've already allocated your CSI set-aside funds. Now you'll need to articulate how you're going to use your school-wide Title I funds to support your plan implementation. If you do not receive these funds, click the box at the top. Money available to your school comes from a variety of sources. It is best to collaborate with a member of the business department as well as your federal programs coordinator before completing this section. They will have knowledge of funds available and funds that have been transferred or carried over. Select the e-grant budget category that the expenditure will be placed in. If you have transferred funds from Title 2A or 4A that are being used to support the school's school-wide plan, they must be listed and the appropriate budget category selected. Next, select all the action plans that the expenditure is a material, resource, or support for. Keep in mind, all expenditures must be included in an action plan. As in the CSI funding, there must be a clear and detailed description of the expenditure. If you have transferred funds from Title 2A or 4A that are being used to support the school's school-wide plan, they must be listed. Last, enter the total dollar amount of the expenditure. Amounts should be in whole dollars without commas or the dollar symbol, and it must match what is being entered into e-grants. The amount in the total expenditures box must match the Title I school-wide amount allocated to the school in e-grants. It is helpful to collaborate with the individual in your organization who submits the e-grant application to ensure accuracy. Click the Add Expenditures tab if you have additional expenditures to add. Throughout this video, you've learned about determining appropriate use of school improvement set-aside funds, as well as the Title 1A school-wide funds, and you learned steps to take to enter this information into the FRCPP. I'll do a brief review of those steps. First, determine alignment between the school's vision, needs, priorities, and strategies. Make sure to collaborate with individuals working with federal programs to identify the total amount of CSI and Title 1A funds allocated to your school. Then enter detailed descriptions for each line item entered. CSI schools must align resources to an ESSA Tier 1, 2, or 3 strategy. And last, verify that the total expenditures match what the allotment is in e-grants. Next, we'll end with a timeline review. First, we'll start with the FRCPP timeline for school plans. Notice the new plans will open in February. They are due by September 1st. And then ongoing throughout the year, monitoring and evaluation documentation takes place. When we look at how e-grants aligns with this timeline, we can see that most of the work for e-grants takes place in between the opening of the new plan in FRCPP and the time that that plan is due. For funds to be available, school-wide plans need to be submitted and approved. Principals complete the school improvement plan, which will be signed and approved by the superintendent, the school improvement facilitator for CSI and ATSI, and board approved. Then they must be approved by PDE. Title I School Improvement Plan is typically submitted by the Federal Programs Coordinator at the LEA. Both plans must be approved by PDE before any funds will become available. Please use these email addresses to contact those who are able to answer any specific questions you may have. Thanks for watching this video, and for questions related to CSI, please reach out to us at pdecsi@iu13.org.